Today, CGI in movies can feel like magic, but the fundamentals of computer-generated imagery can trace their roots all the way back to the beginning of film, where similar techniques wowed their audiences the same way we're impressed today. For this video, I want to show you how two techniques, specifically matting and compositing different exposures, have been used since the beginning, and the new exciting ways that they're used now. In film, the beginning of special effects can always be seen in the work of Georges Méliès. Méliès was famous for developing many of the techniques that I'm talking about today. His use of compositing exposures was what really made him famous at the beginning. So in this footage we're seeing right here, the way he's able to achieve this effect is the head that he's placed on the table, he's actually taken a piece of glass and painted it black and used it to matte the image. So in the actual film strip, there's a black square right where that head is on the table. And then the rest of the strip is left untouched and the whole strip is moving past. So what he does later is he rewinds the film and then exposes it again. This time the only thing that's not painted black is that little square where the head is. He then double exposes the two film strips together, leaving us with the finished image here. And obviously this was revolutionary for the time and just a brilliant mastery of internal camera special effects. This becomes the beginning of what's known as black screen keying. Today we have green screens and blue screens, which for a variety of different reasons are more popularly used than black. Black screen keying would see use in several films at this time, most notably The Great Train Robbery, especially in the scene in the train station where the train flies by. They actually keyed out using a black screen that window, and then they shot the footage of the train coming in at a later time. Despite being a brilliant and revolutionary technique, black screens actually had a lot of problems. For instance, they had really thick outlines around your character. That's why in this scene where there's that traveling matte shot where the head gets bigger and bigger and bigger, Méliès chose to have a dark background in the back. This was to prevent the obvious outlines, and it kind of feathers, the shadows kind of feather in the effect, and you don't really notice the black outlines around his head. Now let's switch over to today, and this would be a use of green screen keying. And it's really the same exact effect. They're using the green screen to matte out that section of film, and then they're replacing it digitally instead of using a film strip. So we go from the green screen on the fat to this giant chasm that they put in later on. Méliès would pave the way for other filmmakers such as Norman Don, who would introduce the idea of matte painting, which is another technique that's just evolved in leaps and bounds since its introduction. What Norman Don did was, instead of draw an image onto the glass and put that in front of the camera like people had been doing before him, he decided to adopt Méliès's black keying out technique, and he painted the actual glass around his subject black. Later on, they were able to add the painting in, and they'd make sets appear much larger than they normally would. And this is a technique that would be used to this day, just with different apparatuses and technologies. A lot of the big event films of the early 40s and 50s, all the way through the 60s and the 70s, even leading up to Star Wars, used matte painting. And the crazy thing about this technique is that using one of the most low budget, simple manipulations of a film strip, we were able to have these amazing images come through. Things that would have cost millions of dollars and hundreds of hours of manpower, if not thousands, to create, could be done with a little bit of black on a film strip and the artistry of a team of designers. Since the advent of computer technology, the industry's seen a shift away from those traditional matte paintings on poster boards, and we've moved more to a digital canvas using computer graphics, and also the combination of real-world sets with digital matte paintings, which has provided just so many possibilities that we didn't have 40 years ago. So as you might have guessed, we're also not using optical printers to expose the film together. Nowadays, we also do that with computers. And using programs like Adobe After Effects, we can key images together in seconds and render in minutes, what used to take hours and hours and hundreds of pounds of machinery. As a result, it's not uncommon for a professional grade science fiction fantasy image to have hundreds and hundreds of elements and source video in it, whereas back in the day that would be 100 different clips that you're having to run through an optical printer instead of just mouse clicks and file drags like it is today. Just to prove to you how relevant and timely these techniques are, I'll show you some clips from the Avengers that use both of these things in exciting and new ways. This first clip just shows the necessity and also how seamless the technique of compositing images is. All the major expensive things going on in this shot, like the animation they're going to have to do later on and the special effects as far as like the fire, they all stem from that foundation of being able to matte out using the green screen and composite the shots of the Black Widow who's running, and then the Hulk is going to be animated later on. Now let's see it all put together. So that was the finished shot in the movie, and then all this is showing you how they did it. And as you can see, this is a mixture of matte painting with that digital scenery we see in the city, and then compositing the green screen and making sure that the source video fits in that environment. And the great thing is that shot, which absolutely would have floored George Méliès and Norman Don, was actually achieved with the foundation of what they made. I mean, that's compositing several images, probably 30 or 40 at the very least, just video in that, and then using matte to incorporate it in the story. So now filmmakers are able to make the world as big as they need to. They can also make whatever they'd like fit in that world they've created by having the ability to matte their images and composite them as well. There are millions of techniques in the world of computer generated imagery, but these are just two of the foundational pillars that will probably always be around and serve as great reminders to the innovators of the past and the legacy that they left.